it's always very challenging to participate in a panel after the lunch. So I hope you're not sleepy or something, because I think that these previous panels we had this day actually opened so many very important questions. So I hope that we will continue on the same path. When I was listening the discussion previously, I must say that we are somehow we have this, unfortunately, this experience of both the war and all the things that comes with war, but also all the challenges and problems in post-conflict period. And I must say, when I was listening to the previous discussion and speakers, that somehow, somewhere in that process, we trade the idea, the concept of reconciliation to the capturing our societies in some part of history that suits us the most. And I don't have a clear idea how we can cut that rope, but I think that we have too much history around us and less of ideas for future, and that's something that's not very good. But the good thing is that progressive parts of our societies, and I think we are part of that, we will not, we will be very stubborn to push the idea of future in our societies. First of all, I would like to give the floor to Bojan Marinčić, International Secretary of SDSM of North Macedonia and Deputy Prime Minister for European Affairs of the Republic of North Macedonia. I hope you are here, and I'm giving you the floor.
Thank you so much. Hvala, dobar dan, good afternoon. I'm really glad to participate even like this, although I was supposed to be there. And I'm really sorry I'm not there, because I would certainly enjoy, when I was listening the introduction and what are you planning this afternoon, I really got jealous. But I hope that next year, if invited, I will be able to join you in person at a lovely spot on Korčula. This topic is very interesting, very important, and it gives a lot of space for discussion. I'll try to focus on few aspects on how can this topic of mitigating the long-term impact of the crisis and existing challenges, particularly through a progressive perspective. First of all, I think that the progressive parties are still the most honest pro-European structures and political forces in the region, and I don't doubt that. And I'm sure that the social democratic and the progressive structures are those who will lead the battle for European Western Balkans. Western Balkans has been unjustifiably left outside the European Union for a long time. Of course, we have part of the responsibility for that as countries who were not always champions of reforms. But on the other hand, I also think that the European Union was not always very honest and enthusiastic about giving us the real chance for membership in the European Union. So this is my starting point, and I would like to make few comments and recommendations, what I think we should do as a region regarding the managing or mitigating the consequences of the crisis and the existing challenges, because I think that the core and the source of existing challenges by all means or at many levels depend on the past experiences and past crises that we have not apparently overcome yet. First of all, I think it's important to mention that stability and security is not a topic that is off. We can see the interethnic tensions, the populist tensions, or ethno-populist political structures are always able to bring back instability in our region through the narratives of the past. In that terms, I think that our task as pro-European and as progressive structures is to strongly oppose this narrative with a counter-narrative, which I don't see that always happens. Therefore, I think that first crucial point is that we need to build up the progressive narrative on that the European Union is our only and the best option we have, that human rights and the whole ideological menu or ideological framework of the social democracy and progressive parties is something that we stand for, and we don't make any compromises with that, and that we are brave in countering populists and ethno-nationalists in the region. This is my first point, and I think this is very, very important. Why it is important? Because it is directly linked with the chances of the progressive parties to win elections. Very often, in the case of North Macedonia, the opposition has been populist, ethnocentric, and has been trying to profit by that. The only way how we counter, particularly in the last 8 years, this narrative is with a strong counter-narrative that we trust that we are a European country that belongs to the European Union, that we will not build up policy out of our frustration from what has happened in the past in the bilateral issues with Greece, today with Bulgaria, or tomorrow with someone else. That we don't build up policy based on the frustration of the bad experiences during the long process of European integration. The second thing, I think that we need to also convey a message that NATO as a structure is still important and is not to be underestimated. You know, North Macedonia faced a big battle over the NATO membership. It was actually the battle of the Prespa agreement and how we finished the Prespa agreement process. Many people were asking questions, maybe we are paying too high price for the Prespa agreement. Maybe the NATO membership is not so important to change the name of the country for. But I think 5 years later, today, when we have Finland and Sweden coming to our countries and asking for support for NATO membership, so Finland and Sweden developed democratic countries that very often have social democratic governments that have been neutral in their constitution, in their essence for many years, many decades. They are coming to us to ask for support to become members of NATO, and we are already there. Today, we have verification that we have done the right thing. Then about the European Union. I think it's crucial to keep the European Union as a political project and not only as an economic project. Because only through the political lenses of the European Union we can impose all the progressive issues, the issues of gender aspects that has to be pushed forward, the issues of fundamental rights protection, the issues both individual and collective, the issues of the green agenda as well, although we know that the green parties belong to that spectrum, but also the social democrats care about it, and progressive people, at least in North Macedonia. So I think that European Union, although has been underestimated as a political project, it is still a very political project. Otherwise, it wouldn't matter whether, for example, Ukraine would join European Union. Why would it matter if it's not a political project of democracy, unity, fundamental rights, and freedom of market? Speaking about reconciliation, and I will try to finish the introduction by that. The cases of North Macedonia is one of the rare cases of functional multi-ethnic democracy that has very successfully managed the cultural and ethnic differences, including the issues of reconciliation within the country after the smaller scale conflict that we had back in 2001. But also, we have demonstrated how the reconciliation between the neighbors, like North Macedonia and Greece, and today North Macedonia and Bulgaria, is taking place through diplomatic channels and through societal channels. Of course, doesn't mean that these processes don't open issues and problems in the societies, particularly when it comes to identity issues like we were facing in the process with Greece and Bulgaria. But we have been pacifying the political, through the diplomatic channels and through societal work. We have pacified the rhetorics, we have pacified and rationalized the arguments, and we have streamlined the European perspective as the only criteria of how we measure today and how we measure our actions today. It was not an easy job to do. It is still a very difficult and challenging process with no guarantees of final success. But this is the line that gained us credibility, support by the people, and a way to resolve the difficult questions. I will finish by saying that people in the Balkans act that we have endless time on our disposal. We have never been put in spending a little time to take big decisions. So I think that almost 30 years after the conflicts in Bosnia, or 25 years after the conflicts in Kosovo, and almost 30 years after the conflict in Croatia, and 20 years after the conflict in North Macedonia, I think it's really enough of using these conflicts as source of frustration and source of political mobilization of ethno-nationalists. We need to make the final point of that, because otherwise we will never make the real transformation. You know, the Second World War was something that was a terrible thing for the entire continent. But 20 years after the Second World War, in 1965, for example, we already had a functional community, economic community between the countries of Western Europe that were in a war before that. And we had a plan and program for development that today means that EU and Europe has not seen a war for 80 years already. So this is what we need on the Balkans. We need a development plan, a European plan that will make the accession to the European Union more tangible and preserve the progressive policies in that way for the future, and take out the arguments of the nationalists. I can share also at the end the experience with Greece. When I was visiting Athens after the Prespa agreement and met with our friends and comrades from Syriza, some older politicians there that were more experienced were commending us a lot for the Prespa agreement. I was wondering why, and asked them, why is the Prespa agreement so important for you? Why do you commend it so much? Because it was also very much important for us, and even more important for us and our NATO membership. The answer was because the Prespa agreement crushed the radicals, because it crushed their political agenda, and they disappeared from the political scene of Greece afterwards. So the only way to crush the radical ethno-nationalist and populist forces is with brave decisions and with clear agenda that will bring all the countries of our region in the European Union. Thank you, and I'm open for discussion.
Thank you, Bojan. Well, I think it's very important because, as Bojan mentioned, is that stability, security in the region, overcoming the past, building progressive narrative, a development plan which is progressive. And after Bojan, I would like to give the floor to Lana Prlić. She's coming from the most heated part of the region. And I'm very happy because she is one of the discussants. I met her, I think, last year in Korčula, and she gives me hope because she is the new generation of young politicians in the region, and in some points she is for sure more progressive than some heroes of social democracy in the region, and so it's my honor to listen to her, and I think we all have to support her. She is a member of parliament, a member of presidency, and our good friend from the board of CEE Gender Network. The floor is yours, Lana.
Thank you, Tamara. Thanks for this event once more, and I'm really glad that I can see some, for me, new faces and some, for me, old, let's say, faces, the ones that I know for the years. And I didn't want to take word at the previous discussion, but I will use floor now to say some things, and I'll start with some of the panelists in the last panel said that we do not have any more or not at all support between the social democratic parties within the region, and like it used to be, I don't know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And I think this kind of events are the great opportunity to meet, to exchange opinions, and to have not just relation in the sense of being very polite on these events, but also to have connections and to use our connections, let's say, in the future, because unfortunately I can say that all political parties from that social democratic way do not have any kind of coordination or systemic approach in creating, let's say, big sisterhood like we used to have, even though we do have a PASS, we do have a Yes for the Youth, and so on, but I don't see that is on that level like it used to be 10 years ago. So basically what we have now are only personal connections, and if that person stop doing politics, then we are losing all of those connections. So we do not have a systemic approach by the parties. That is critical also for the party that I'm coming from. So it became very personal. I have to be careful now, since from the last year situation changed in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Since now Social Democratic Party of Bosnia and Herzegovina is a part of the coalition on the state and then the federal level and some cantonal levels, mostly with the parties who are at the national parties. Just to be clear, Social Democratic Party is now in a coalition with the Dodik Party on a state level. And it's really, I'm really careful on what I would like to say, because my wish is that we are not in that coalition, but of course, since we have a so complicated political system, we couldn't afford ourselves to be opposition for more years. The mistake that we are doing as a social democrats over the years, and we did that mistake from 2010 to 2014, and I can see that other political, social democratic political parties in region are doing, is that we become a part of the position, and when we become a power, then we forget about the party. And mostly traditionally we lose the next elections, and when we come back to the party is almost empty. And we have a problem with the gathering people again and rebuilding the party and so on and so on. So I hope that we didn't make that mistake, but we will see in 3 years. Also, Tamara mentioned the new generation. And this morning we were talking about the history, and Natasha was highlighting the history of anti-fascism and glorifying of anti-fascism in that golden age of the period when my parents were my age. But we have now problem because next year there's a lot of elections in the region, and the kids born in 2006 will have a right to vote. So we need to find alternative how to approach to them, because populists will take our votes, and those populists will have 2 or 5 seats in a parliament, and without them we will not have a power to form any kind of coalition. And of course, after 1 year they will sell their hands, and again we will be in opposition, or will be or we will have we will be defeated on the next elections. Regarding the history, last year I was in Lithuania, and we had there, let's have a meeting, let's say that as a meeting with the advisory of the Prime Minister of Lithuania, and they said at the meeting, and I'm referring to this on a topic of war in Ukraine, of Russian aggression in Ukraine, and he said at that meeting, his advisor of the Prime Minister, that Ukraine war is the biggest war and the most brutal war on the field of Europe since World War II. And yeah, in Lithuania, yeah. And then I couldn't just be silent on that statement, and I said to him that I'm coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, I'm coming from Western Balkans, I'm coming from the country where genocide happened, from the country, from the region where war happened, and from the region where actually sexual harassment and rape during the war became war criminal crime. And he was apologizing and said that he didn't know that I was in room, you know. So and he didn't know that, you know, and everything. So and I asked him how you expect from people solidarity if you do not respect someone else's suffering and what happened. Also, what was interesting there is we were. And I will finish with that, but I want to provoke the discussion maybe. We were visiting the cemetery, and one of the MPs were explaining us Lithuanian history, and I asked him what are those monuments, and they really reminded me of those monuments that we have on Sutjeska, for instance. And I knew what those monuments are and to whom, and he told me, oh, those are Russian monuments, we will destroy them. Yeah, yes. And I asked him why they will destroy those monuments, since those are the monuments from World War II. And he said, we don't want to do anything anymore, even in history with the Russians. And that reminded me of Mostar, and Demir will know what I will talk about now, is that the last summer, and for the last 20 years, Partisan Cemetery, which was designed by Bogdan Bogdanovic, is also destroyed by the hooligans, actually by the people who were paid, because you have a huge cemetery, Partisan Cemetery, in the middle of the city, and in the middle of the night, someone destroyed all the flowers who were symbolizing the names of the old partisans. So, and those flowers is more than 300 or 400. So you have to pay someone to go there, you know, and to have full stomach to do that. So it is actually systematic. We have now a problem that we are not anymore fighting over what happened in history, but we are now fighting is history even happened. And Romina said that perfectly at the very beginning, and I wrote it down, we produced more history than we can consume, and now that I think that now system is forcing us to have just amnesia and to forget everything what happened. And I'm coming back, and I will finish with that, and just to bear in mind that we have kids born in 2006 having right to vote next year, and what is our answer what we will offer to them, what history we will offer to them, what alternatives we will offer to them. So I think that we need to do some restart coming from ourselves, because we are, as individuals, are also hypocrite. And of course, now we also have that answer of the EU to the Macedonia. And that was a perfect excuse for my country as well to do nothing and say, oh, they changed their name and EU slapped the door in front of their faces. Now we will not do anything because, you can see how things is working. So that's it.
Thank you, Lana. I think you open, I think, a very serious angle of what's going on, and that's the relativization of some facts, and I think we are living in it. If I may just jump with one example which will make it even more clear is that, for example, that in Serbia, in books of history, and I saw it in my kids' book, is we learn about the NATO bombing, that the targets were mostly civilians and schools and hospitals, and there are more than 5,000 or 6,000 civilian victims. And if you look at the facts, and I think one organization made concrete by name what are the victims, about 400 civilian victims total from Kosovo and Serbia, but we have now generations who are built on the idea that someone on purpose bombed schools and hospitals and everything. So it has, for sure, consequences, and we can see them in some polls with the younger generation in Serbia. I would like now to give floor to Kimmo Kiljunen and to hear something out of the box.
Thank you very much indeed. Maybe I should quickly introduce only that you understand what is the framework for me to speak. First of all, I'm more than grateful to be here with you, friends and comrades. I'm coming from Finland, the other side of the Europe, and I was very pleased to hear that Bojan mentioned Finland and Sweden joining to NATO in very positive lights. I would like to react for that one a little bit, but before that one, I would like to say you that similar way Lana said, that what was reflected, my reflections from the past discussions, it was interesting to listen the previous debate here, and one particular aspect, and say it a bit jokingly, but I will say lighten a little bit the environment here now, is the question of gender equality, which is obviously one of the big issues for this conference as a whole. Full respect for that one. The argument went, some of the speakers here went, and others also communicated, was that the quotas, gender quotas in politics are important for guaranteeing the representation. I'm fully, in the way, feminist in terms of understanding that gender equality issue is more than representation, absolutely more than representation only, but the representation is also an important issue. Okay, now you are speaking with the member of parliament from Finland, and they have Swedish colleagues here around me too. We know exactly what means gender equality in our societies, and quotas also. We do have quotas, very strong quotas, and very important indeed. Nevertheless, my argument goes this way. The quotas are really gender equality quotas. And in a medium term even, but in long term, they are actually, and this is a joking saying, guaranteeing the vested interest of males, not about ladies. I'm in the country where the previous government, Sanna Marin's government, my party was obviously heading the government. Sanna Marin is obviously social democrat. I am 5 leaders of the government parties were all ladies. Out of 19 ministers, 12 were ladies, 7 men. Yes, there are no quotas in terms of government, not in terms of the parliamentary elections. We have open list in parliamentary elections. Nevertheless, almost close to half of the members of parliament are ladies. voluntarily coming from people's voice. In our countries, the issue in politics is anymore in that way, particularly that should we protect ladies' gender interests in terms of women, but it's in terms of the old men like me, etc., etc. That's, I say jokingly. This is a transition period. We need the quotas absolutely, and when we are in that moment that that's not any more issue, then we are looking at the qualities of a person primarily and not about the gender. But that obviously needs the transition period, even positive discrimination as we know it, and that's what I'm fully supporting. That wasn't counter reactions, it was only jokingly to reflect for you that situations varies in terms of countries. Yes, situation also varies in terms of the basic issue we are discussing today. The headline here, primary headline is, can we compare Balkan situation with Ukrainian war? And I have thought very deeply on that issue, and I think that we can compare. We can compare in very many ways, and I give you one angle for that one. Bojan, you said from North Macedonia, such congratulations, Finland and Sweden joining to NATO, and even asking your opinion on that one. Yes, of course, we must ask your opinion because it's an animosity which is required in terms of getting into. But honestly, we are not so proud to become members of NATO. It's an obligation. It's an obligation in a situation where the security environment in Europe has changed so drastically that was the only way of guaranteeing our own security. We are joining to NATO precisely because it's our own security interest. It's not against anybody, and it's not taking anything from anybody. It's only for our own security interest. And it's very unfortunate, and I put it very bluntly, it's very unfortunate that we had to join to military alliance, not to be alone if the situation comes when the rule-based security system we created after the collapse of the Cold War has been vanished. And that obviously created a situation that I cannot be happy, and I'm pretty sure the Swedish colleagues here are not neither happy, that they have been 200 years non-aligned. Longest peace period in Europe, together with Switzerland, being non-aligned, military non-aligned, which is obviously their record. We have been 75 years in peace, because of the non-alignment, because we are obviously in very geopolitically complicated position, and we had to obviously be trying to be so that we are not provocative into any directions. It's only our own security which is the concern. So that's why now that we have to join to NATO is not a please issue for us, it's a necessity. And now I come to the back of the comparison, and sorry I take a bit history here too, because it's inevitable with us. Spirit of Helsinki. Of course I'm from Finland. Of course I have my background very much in OEC family. There are colleagues and friends here which we know it exactly. Try to think back about 1990s, about the new situation. Collapse of the Cold War world in Europe in particularly. And what an amazing situation. All major changes in the geopolitical geography in Europe throughout the history has always taken place after major wars. And suddenly in 1990s we are in the situation that the major upheaval, Poland, country which have actually 3 neighbors before 1990, have now 7 neighbors, and out of those 3 neighbors, no one is existing anymore. Obviously, Soviet Union, no. Czechoslovakia, no. East Germany, no. So 7 neighbors now without a war. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And then obviously it's a question for us that is it really so that the basic principles of common security, the new security architecture we created via this OEC process, in particularly Helsinki spirit, cooperation, reconciliation, not to contradictions, we trust in confidence building measures, disarmament activities, all those, obviously, we social democrats, we have been number ones in Europe defending that type of argumentation. And suddenly we are witnessing it around us happening. And then we had this obsolete war from the past in Balkans. collapse of Yugoslavia, regional power, regional hegemony, whatsoever way, and so bloody conflict, as you told us, even reminding the worst in terms of victims since Second World War in Europe. Well, Anna, it's not actually true. I can tell you, not defending the Lithuanian advice of the government, but I give you the argument, which I will tell you, then you understand what I mean. But collapse of Yugoslavia. No, we are absolutely no. It's
respecting each other. That's
absolutely. It's an analytical.
Yeah,
it's not a totally analytical comment for you, because it's so sad. It's happening now. Also an obsolete war. Right? I'm coming to that one. But the point is that you behave in very strange way in terms of the common spirits we created, in terms of this common security structure in Europe, where the cornerstones obviously is that you are not building your security on the cost of the others. The security is more than military security, and the security is also more than state security. It's a human security, and this was obviously the cornerstones of the cooperative systems we created in Europe. And suddenly in Yugoslavia, you had the ethno-nationalism emerging. That's a past. That's really a past. In European Union, we created really union, which is obviously the frontiers of past doesn't matter, because we have common problems. We have to solve them jointly together. That's why we created the union. And the frontiers in terms of the nationalistic interests are not so, etc., etc. That's a past. You had your experience, and now I come to the basic message which I wanted to say, the Ukrainian war. What is actually the essence of Ukrainian war? The essence of Ukraine, there's two elements in that one. That's, I put in very blunt way, that's the last battle of collapse of Soviet Union. That's the last battle of collapse of Soviet Union, and we thought that the Soviet Union collapsed so nicely, peacefully, how strong the peace structures in Europe are. They can consolidate. Obviously, they were Chechenias, okay, Transnistria, okay, South Ossetia, okay, Abkhazia, Nagorno-Karabakh, etc. Okay, these are small issues anyhow, because it's a big empire which was collapsing anyhow, but peaceful way. Sorry to say now, it has been a prolonged collapse of an empire. And this is now the last battle. It was Georgia, obviously, and it's Ukraine. Russian empire has gone. It's never to come, even Soviet empire has gone now, because it's very clear the Soviet empire, in terms of empire, not in terms of communist system, but Soviet empire is gone, because without Ukraine, like Brzezinski said, Russia is not an imperium. It's already a medium-sized country for the next half a decade, half a century, 100% irrespective who is in power. But that's the destiny of now, this using the war in methodology. But that is the essence in Ukraine. The major start already, we didn't see it very well when Putin made his speech for nation in 2005, saying that the biggest geopolitical catastrophe of last century was the collapse of Soviet Union. We didn't react that properly. Okay, that's a dreaming back, etc., etc. But that exactly was the issue of which we are now witnessing, trying to get back which has been gone. This is a war of past century already. It's an obsolete war in a way, and they will lose it absolutely. That's why I said to you, unfortunately, 30 years war, collapse of Soviet Union, which still is continuing, may actually produce even physical terms more victims than Balkan was. That was my only argument, a little bit saying that one that we understand. Now, sorry you understand that I'm speaking too long, but if you allow me a little bit, still argue further what I can see in future. Because obviously nobody for us cannot say, look at the crystal ball and say that we know already what's happening. What we can say, there's few scenarios. And I put the scenarios in a very blunt way in order to also show a bit hope. Because I'm an optimistic, I'm a social democrat. I would like really that we have still some hopes to get back to the common understanding of the security in Europe. I'm from Finland also at the same time, that we have to live anyhow, survive anyhow in all circumstances, even as being a member of NATO. We have to survive. That's a number one issue. So now the scenarios, and I want to say that quick words because I can analytically go deeply. First of all, escalation. And that we all try to avoid. You know the word escalation. We understand exactly that at the end of the escalation is apocalyptic end of Europe, end of world, exactly. We are speaking of nukes here, etc., etc. So obviously we invest, we everywhere try to avoid that is not escalating. Risks are huge. Still, the risks are huge. Secondly, the irony of the situation in Ukraine is so, we already know that Russia has lost it. The empire has gone. Russia has lost it morally, absolutely, politically, exactly the same way even military seems to be losing. But the irony is, Ukraine cannot win it. Ukraine cannot win it, unfortunately. It cannot win. Because having that structure of power structures in Russia and dreams, etc., whatever they are, and the power interest, that's the end on there, obviously, they can continue the war, irrespective that if Ukraine even takes back all its territories which belongs to Ukraine, including Crimea, irrespective of that one, they can continue. If they have ceasefire, they will have the ceasefire sooner or later. I hope so. The killing must stop. Nevertheless, it will be a frozen conflict. They do have the experience about frozen conflicts, Transnistria, Nagorno-Karabakh, as we saw. It also, now it's a living conflict once again back. But that frozen conflict will continue and insecurity in Europe will prevail. So the war is not over. The only way, and that's actually the point and challenge for us, even Social Democrats, very much challenge. Ukrainian third scenario will win the war. And now I put bluntly, don't blame me if I put it very bluntly in order that understanding. They will win the war only together with Russia. They will win the war together with Russia, Russian people. That's the whole point. We need a new Russia, and that will come. After collapsing wars, lost wars, Alexander II after Crimean War in 19th century, after Japanese War, Nikolai II, the constitutional reforms in Russia, after First World War, you know the revolutions, after that, etc., etc. After Afghanistan War, then after First World War, the Russian Imperium was collapsing, like all the wars in last century were collapsing imperiums. Now Afghanistan War, Perestroika, Glasnost, Russia, Soviet Empire lost war in Ukraine. This is a future Russia. That's why for us it's a very, very, very crucial, Social Democrats particularly, that we try to work and find common contacts, communications with the Russian oppositions in broad terms, civic society in broad terms, and trying to support changes in that particular society which is inevitably coming. Inevitably coming. It cannot prevail. It's a totally obsolete. We can see today how ironical is the power structure, power place inside even Russia. Legitimacy as government has gone. And that's why it's important that we are prepared, we Social Democrats and Europe broadly, to support the positive changes. You have the same challenges here in Balkan also vis-à-vis your different regimes, and I don't go to details, you know them better than I do, but that is the issue. And that is for Social Democrats important, but that we trust in long term anyhow for reconciliation and the pattern for cooperative security, and not polarizing, because that's not the end. It only breeds extremists, nationalistic forces and militaristic forces in even our own societies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think it's very important for our region, this idea for, first you mentioned the security concept as a common security of human, and I think we here have to be aware that security of our small countries by themselves, it has nothing to do actually with security but with fear. And regarding this crisis, I must say that we have to be aware, especially as progressives, that this war in Ukraine will stop eventually, and we will have to speak with other side, and we have to be aware that Russian people and Putin, that's not the same. So let's not push people from Russia, because sometimes they are more brave maybe than us, because they are ready to go to jail because they want to oppose the Putin regime. Now I think we will jump to the economy. And I would like to give the floor to Goran Radosavljević. He's the Vice President of Social Democratic Party in Serbia, university professor, chair of our Executive Studies in Just Transition in Serbia, and my very good friend. The floor is yours.
Hvala, Tamara. Ja ću da malo dam posla i prevodiocima, ako se ne ljutite.
Pošteno.
Okay. Hvala prvo, drago mi je da sam po treći put ovde. Hvala što ste me pozvali. Imao bih, slušajući ove dve debate i ovu treću danas, svašta da kažem na ovu temu, ali probat ću se držim onoga što mi je dato da pričamo o ekonomiji. Dakle, šta smo naučili 20-30 godina posle ratova na ovim bivšim prostorima? Neko jutro se rekao ništa. Ja se uvek setim 2008. godine kada smo u parlamentu usvajali sporazum o stabilizaciji i pridruživanju sa Evropskom unijom. To je bio veliki korak u pridruživanju Srbije Evropskoj uniji. Tad nam je u parlamentu potpredsjedniku vlade i meni kao njegovom savjetniku prišao Tomislav Nikolić, u to vreme radikal, i rekao je: ja samo hoću da vam kažem da ću ja sa svojih 13 kolega glasati za ovaj sporazum. To u tom trenutku nama bilo nezamislivo. Radikalna stranka podržava sporazum o stabilizaciji i pridruživanju sa Evropskom. Aha, malo sporije da pričam, u redu. Okay. Podržava sporazum sa Evropskom unijom, onda je on rekao: ja ću to uraditi zato što više ne želim da gubim. On je posle toga dobio izbore, a mi smo, ne želim da gubim, on je dobio izbore, mi smo gubimo već 11 godina. 20 godina unazad ovaj region, i to je moja prva poruka, je izgubio između 15 i 20% stanovništva. Kad kažem na region, mislim prostor bivše Jugoslavije, osim Slovenije, i to je jedan veliki problem. Ja gotovo 20 godina pričam u ekonomskim krugovima da Evropa ima samo dva dugoročna velika problema. Jedan je demografija, drugi je, nazvaću ga, energy and environment. Sve ostalo može u relativno kratkom roku da se reši. Mislim na ekonomske probleme, pa čak i na političke. Ne zaboravite da su lideri Evrope nekoliko godina samo posle Drugog svjetskog rata seli zajedno i postavili neku viziju Evrope. Dakle, nisu čekali 30-50 godina. Jel? Demografija dovodi do toga da imate veliki pritisak na ekonomiju države, nemate dovoljno radne snage, sa time se svi susrećemo prethodnih nekoliko godina u regionu. Nemate dovoljno para u sistemu zdravstva, u sistemu penzionom, socijalnog sistemu i tako dalje. Znači država nema dovoljno para i to proizvodi razne neke druge probleme. Nedostatak adekvatne demografske politike u suštini stvorio i veliki problem u Evropi, jer ako pogledam i talas u Skandinaviji i jačanje desnice u Nemačkoj i nekim drugim zemljama, desnica je svoju politiku izgradila na nekoj kvazi politici prema migrantima, mržnji ili kako god da je nazovemo. Jel? I oni su tu našli neku svoju potporu. Mi nismo dali odgovor, naša politika nije bila adekvatna kao odgovor njihovo i oni su to uspjeli da nađu. Dakle, postavljanje adekvatne demografske politike, migratorne politike na nivou Evrope je nešto što, ukoliko u budućnosti ne postavimo, prosto, evo ja ovih dana u Beogradu vidim sve više vozača autobusa sa Šrilanke. Jeli, to je realnost. Da li ćemo to pustiti stihijski ili ćemo se time baviti, to je veliko pitanje za nas. Druga stvar, u prethodnih 10 godina ovaj region, opet kad kažem region, mislim bivšu Jugoslaviju osim Hrvatske, je zastao negde na 40% bruto domaćeg proizvoda po glavi stanovnika mereno u paritetima kupovne moći da bi bilo uporedivo, na 40% proseka Evropske unije. I tu smo stali negde tokom krize 2009. 10. godine i ne pomeramo se. Posmatrajući sa stanovišta običnog čoveka, njegov životni standard stagnira. I tu su opet desničari našli svoju politiku i rekli su: pa dobro, tvoj životni standard stagnira, ali mi ćemo vam dati 100 evra svakog meseca, malo neke socijalne pomoći, pa sad ćemo jednima pa drugima i To je način na koji oni plivaju u toj svojoj političkoj opciji i to tako funkcioniše. COVID je to u čitavoj Evropi gotovo zakonio, jel? Čak MMF izašao jednog trenutka i rekao je nema veze, nemamo bolju politiku, bacite novac iz aviona, jel? To je dobro. To se sada kroz inflaciju vratilo svima nama nazad. Tako da, ako pogledate jedan mnogo bolji indeks po meni, to je indeks prosječne potrošnje po stanovniku, po domaćinstvu, pardon. Ovaj region se nalazi na oko 50% prosječne potrošnje Evropske unije. Najlošije posle regiona, nešto je Crna Gora malo bolja, Srbija je lošija, Bosna i Hercegovina, Albanija, Bugarska je na 66%. Znači između 50 i 66% kao najlošija zemlja Evropske unije. Šta to znači? To znači da prosječan građanin regiona troši najmanje duplo manje, opet u paritetu kupovne moći nego prosječan građanin Evropske unije. I sa druge strane, ja sam gledao malo ovu izložbu 10 godina Hrvatske u Evropskoj uniji, koja je ovdje ispred i pozivam da sve pogledate, jel? Kada je rađeno jedno istraživanje pre 2-3 godine u Srbiji, pitali su građane šta mislite ko su najveći donatori u Srbiji. Građani smatraju da su najveći donatori u Srbiji Rusija i Kina. Zvanična statistika kaže da je na prvom mjestu Evropska unija, sljedećih 9 mjesta zemlje Evropske unije članice, onda ide SAD, Rusije nema nigde na toj listi u zadnjih 10 godina, Kina na nivou statističke greške. Ali percepcija je potpuno drugo. Ukoliko se to ne promeni, to svoje mesto na političkoj sceni će već naći Rusi i Kina, već su našli. U Srbiji je trenutno najveći investitor država Kina. Trenutno je najveći investitor država Kina. Znači nije Evropska unija. Najveći poslove obavljaju kineske firme. Najveći privatizacije rade firme iz Abu Dabija. I tako dalje, i tako dalje. Ako Evropa ne vidi da ovaj region mora da bude deo Evrope, neće ni ovaj region vidjeti, odnosno nove generacije o kojima sada pričamo, tek to neće vidjeti. I onda imate generaciju koja je rođena nakon rata u Srbiji, koji crta i veliča ratne zločince. To je prosto sve te deo jedne iste politike. I to je opet, pričali smo i prošli put o tome, velika greška socijaldemokratskih opcija koji su vodili Evropu, a nadam se da ćemo na našim greškama mnogo toga i da naučimo. I treća stvar koju sam htio da kažem, dakle, druga politika bi bila vraćanje ekonomske politike i veći fokus na običnom građaninu. Šta on od te ekonomske politike ima? Građani u ovom regionu, a polako vidim i građani Evrope, sve manje vide šta imaju od te socijaldemokratske politike, polako se okreću nekim drugim alternativnim politikama koji mi nude bolji život u nekom kraćem roku. Jel? I poslednja stvar, i time ću da završim, rekao sam da Evropa ima dva problema, drugi je energy and environment. Rat u Ukrajini u stvari pokazao kolika je zavisnost Evrope od uvoza energije. I meni je prosto bilo nepojmljivo, ja sam prvi put počeo energetiku da se bavim neke 2002. godine, pisao sam svoj master rad u Beču, u OPEC-u i rekao sam prosto je neverovatno da Evropa dozvoljava da gotovo polovinu svoje energije uvozi iz zemalja sa kojima do juče nije bila baš prijatelj, jel? Bio neki hladni rat, dešavalo se nešto i tako dalje. I čitava politika Nemačke u tom trenutku da će graditi 2 gasovoda od kojih će zadovoljavati 100% svojih gasnih potreba iz Rusije. Meni bila opet politika možda neke male siromašne zemlje pa nema drugu opciju pa kupuje gas iz Rusije, ali jedne Nemačke u tom trenutku mi je bilo nepodnebljivo. Pokazalo se prošle zime da je ta politika bila pogrešna i mislim da će u narednim godinama politika energetske diversifikacije morati da bude jedna od primarnih, jer u svim ekonomskim planovima razvoja u ovom trenutku više nisu ni kapital, ni radna snaga ograničenja, nego isključivo energija. Šta to znači za naš region kada pogledate kartu planete, Evrope, tokom noći, vidjet ćete mnogo svetlih tačaka tamo oko Beneluxa, pa Pariz, Nemačka, Austrija, onda imate jednu crnu tačku. Ta crna tačka je deo Srbije, deo Crne Gore, deo Bosne i deo ovog Balkana. To je energetska crna tačka Evrope I ta crna tačka se poklapa i sa siromaštvom, poklapa se i sa nepoverenjem prema Europskoj uniji, poklapa se i sa nekim ratnim sukobima u istoriji i sve to ima veze. Znači, veći fokus na ekonomiju, makar na percepciju građana, da ta percepcija bude da Evropska unija ta koja ulaže milijarde evra u Srbiju i region, a ne neke druge zemlje, bi svakako pomogao. Dakle, da rezimiram, demografija, standard građana i održiva energija uz hranu, naravno, koja je direktno povezana sa njom, su neke politike koje socijaldemokratija mora da propagira. U suprotnom, bit ćemo poraženi čistim populizmom, kao što i do sada se to dešava. Hvala vam puno.
Thank you, Goran. Now I would like to give the floor to Leđon Shahini, Executive Director from Kemal Stafa Foundation from Albania. The floor is
Thank you, Tamara. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here in this panel to speak for the challenges that our region has. But first of all, I'll start a bit with the impact of the crisis. Why I'm saying that is because to speak about impact is very important to do some long data analysis. And when it comes to the region, there are no period without crisis. So it's so difficult to understand which are the main factors that have influenced the region. We can find case by case in countries, in Albania, in Macedonia, so there are Serbia, there are those good periods, let's call, in each of the countries, but as a region, it's so difficult, which means that as a region, we have not moved with a unified agenda. Okay, we have mentioned all the time the EU integration process is, let's say, the big one, but when it comes to, let's say, sub-objectives, it seems that every country goes by its own. Saying that, even if we see all indexes, Human Development Index, Social Progress Index, Income per capita, Corruption Perception Index, and so on, all the countries, and when I mention all the countries, I refer Western Balkans 6 countries, always we have moved with the same threshold. So the changes have been very small during the years. And saying that, we have to think how to start to go with the same agenda as a region. This will be our, let's say, push to the new threshold of income. We are all in the mid-upper income level of incomes, but we are not moving from this strata of development. And taking as one of the main authors of development, Rostov, he has mentioned that in 5 stages of development, the third one is the one that all the developed countries today have passed, which is the sustainable growth. And if we see all countries in the Western Balkan, none of those have had this sustainable growth. Why? Because all the time, starting from 90s, all the time we have based our growth with some pushes. Maybe a big road, some privatizations, and things like that, but not with a strategical one. And here it comes the role of the progressives. How we can go with a unified agenda. Let's take only the 4 years. We have been in many crises impacted from the world, like COVID, war in the Ukraine, which have influenced directly our economies and directly even the democracy, the rule of law, and all the other pillars. The COVID changed a lot the structure in our countries, the economic structure, I mean, because and one of the lessons learned from the crisis, I have to say that our countries, as Balkans, we can shoot very fast with the changes. So if something happened, we can change things fast and we can start again growing. But, okay, it's good for the short run, but when it comes to the long run, it's not okay. So the same happened even with the COVID, even with the war in the Ukraine. We had a big inflation. We start some let's say, politics, we stabilize a bit. Now we are facing a new one, and this is a bit specific for Albania at least. We are facing the crisis of exchange rate. We have a lot in the region. There are countries using euro, like Kosovo and Montenegro, the others that have fixed exchange rate, but there are even cases like Albania that has fluctuation exchange rate. And let me say by numbers that we are losing every month approximately 40 million of euro only because of the exchange from the exports, which means, and when it comes to the Albania, the exports are related with the group of the society which is, let's say, in the minimum, or let's say the highest group that goes in the poverty line, that goes under the poverty line. Saying that, it means that we have to react by region to have these political structures. And following what the professor says is related exactly even with the migration, which is one of the main problems that the region has. We have had a lot of migration, not only the labor force, but even the youth generation, those that are brain movement of the population, which will bring a lot of problem in our countries. Not only in the economical aspects, but it comes even in the democracy, even in the rule of law. We are doing a study right now, and the problem is that if the young generation leaves, no one will speak anymore. Because those that live in the country, if they are in the pension system, they don't care a lot, or maybe they don't know a lot about the new changes that we are speaking. So those that are the voice of the country, they are leaving. So we have to work a lot in this regard. And this has to be happened as a region. Saying that, what we can do as a challenge is, one of the main topics that we can do is the education. If we see, there are a lot of funds from the EU to the Balkan related to education, but mostly countries of non-EU with EU countries. When it comes to the cooperation between Western Balkan countries with each other, there are a few cases where the young generation cooperate with each other. So we have to focus a lot. And here comes even the role of, as I'm representing here the foundation of the Socialist Party, here comes even the role of foundations. We have to increase a lot the role, our role, regarding the new generations, the young group. We have to work a lot why they have to contribute to the society, why they have to stay in our countries, and how they can go furthermore, going to the, let's say, the final objective, EU integration. So I'll not take more time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Legioni. I must confess something popped up in my head when I was listening to your discussion. Actually, we have a problem in our region. We have those brain drained and brain washed. So, so actually, yeah, it's. I could say kind of a problem, but you said, you know, how we can go with a unify agenda, and I must say that it's very obvious in our region, but I think after all these crises in the whole Europe that we actually created and global world, and we have global challenges, but when challenges appear, we have national answers. And now I would like to give the floor to Marta Sigeti Bonifart. And I must say, whenever I think for example, sustainable development goals and the environment and everything, I always call Marta because she is the smartest one, and she is always the most progressive with the ideas and what will appear as a problem and how can we deal with that. So Marta is also the member of the board of CEE Network, and she is also the former executive director of Regional Environment Center. Marta, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's very difficult to start after such an introduction, but we all face the similar challenges, whether you are this part of the world or the other part of the world. First of all, in the past 20 years, we grew enormously huge number of people around the world. We are more than 8 billion people. And then comes that we have to feed the people. We need to give water to the people because they will need water. And last but not at least, and that's one of the important challenges of our century, is energy. We use energy in a way we never used before, and we are using it in an uncontrollable way. And then we are facing conflicts. Whether we like it or not, these conflicts are coming up, and we are living through in very short-term spaces. Why? One of the reasons is politicians. We elect politicians for every 4 years, and in every 4 years they are focusing on how to gain the next or win the next election. I'm sorry for the politicians who do not think that way, but generally short-term thinking is one of the worst things that are happening around us. The second that is quite interesting, that we talk about 1990s and how good it was to come out from a closed society. We were always looking at Yugoslavia as the best kids in the block, and you were able to use your passports, you traveled, you worked, and overnight you lost those, and we gained a little bit much more. Were we able to use it in Central and Eastern Europe? More or less. There are still challenges because old habits die hard. And we always have to remember that we were socialized in, and the same thing goes for Soviet Union. They were socialized for 70 years under command economy. King is up there, and we do what the king is saying. Whether you call it comrade or you call it the chief of the party, but it happened that way. So to change the mindset of people is quite challenging. And this way, why I believe very much whatever we do, wherever we are doing, is education. Whether we talk about gender issues, for the past 30 years, we were focusing on education, bringing people together, working together, helping each other, networking, taking good examples from all over the world, not only Europe, and to give the opportunity for people to be expressed and to have progressive networks. Because one of the things that is missing is progressive networks. And what else do we gain during the past years? Is it a benefit? Or is it a challenge? When I see my 4-year-old grandchild playing on the smartphone, I think I'm not that sure that it's a benefit, but we are connected. Globally connected, for the good, for the bad. We have media continuously accessible for the good or the bad. Do people abuse the media? Yes, they do. We see more and more young women turning away from politics because they don't want to be exposed from the media. Once you become a politician, everybody can shoot at you, because you are a public figure. So please think about, when we are doing trainings for young politicians, how to be able to manage this type of challenges. I had my own experience when my kids were abused in school in 2nd and 3rd grade, to say that, oh, your mother went into politics because she was kicked out from her job. I wasn't. I stayed even 5 more years in that job, but this is how my kids were approached, and they were really, really abused in the system. And that was still the good old times, the nice way. Now it's much more cruel. And last but not at least, we live in a digital world. We have artificial intelligence. So with the use of these tools, in 2 seconds, you can change narratives in positive and negative way. So I'm just pointing out that for the next 5 to 10 years, from election to election, from cooperation to cooperation, we will be seeing these type of difficulties or opportunities, because the same way they are opportunities. But what happened, and we had a discussion during lunch, and nobody really raised except yourself, with the COVID. The COVID stopped the world. Stopped the world of traveling, stopped the economies, stopped the corporations, and we were frozen in our own homes for weeks and weeks and weeks, and even a year. And we never experienced that before. And I think that it's also quite important to know that our world will not be the same. It's going to be hotter, more crowded. The climate crisis will bring up different issues for fighting for resources, for food, for energy, for water. And the reason I liked very much the discussion today is talking about the Balkan. What did we learn about the Balkan War? One of the things we learned is that there is a need at community level to rebuild cooperation. So the civil society was extremely useful or important to build up healthy communities, and these healthy communities started to cooperate with each other and share experiences. And the second thing is that with the Gender Task Force was part of the Stability Pact Working Table 1, but me as the Regional Environmental Center, we were part of the Stability Pact Working Table 2. And there was focusing on civil society, there was focusing on regional reconstruction and strengthening governance programs and investment programs. And building up coalition, I think this is going to be useful once the war is going to be over in Ukraine, because you will need mechanisms to rebuild communities, and I'm saying that communities, to work across natural resource sites, water or forestry or agriculture, because those rebuilding of communities you will be seeing. In the Western Balkans, we had the Drini river basins, and communities rebuild ecotourism around it. You have started to think about what to do at Lake Ohrid, for instance, and what can you do, and what kind of cooperation can come up. And I'm also a born optimist, because that's the only way how we can be thinking about the future, is to take some of the good examples, and you know the good examples from Southeast Europe that really worked. And once the war is going to be over, you can help them to understand how this could be rebuilt. Unfortunately, there will be some ugly remains of the war, as you were pointing out quite clearly, like the rapes, like the war crimes, like the separated families. And I think that we need to be prepared for that. As Natasha was saying, that the organized crime is much more organized than ourselves are. So the issue is, how can we, healthy communities, how can we build up on solidarity, on cooperation? And I think one of the important messages of the Korčula School is that to build up experiences, reconnect disconnected circles, and I'm sorry to say, but the gender perspective is extremely important to have young women voices heard from local to national level as well as global. Because you are going to be the ones who are going to be part of the rebuild of our societies, and the same kind of connections we will need in Russia, in Ukraine, as you have built up in Southeast Europe. So with that one, I wish a lot of good luck for everybody in the room, because I think it will give us lots of exercise for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. If I may add something, and we need some kind of continuity of progressive and good ideas, because sometimes I think we have a lack of that skill of continuity of good ideas, and we know very well how to destroy everything in 1 year or in 10 years, which was built for decades. Now I would like to give the floor to Jure Zubčić. He is leading SDP in Zadar. I must say I met him last year, and he was one of the most interesting speakers on last Korčula School. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. When I read this for this year, I will speak in English because I will be much shorter than Croatian. That's the reason. No, I will speak in English. So when I read the topic of this this panel discussion, first questions which come on my mind, what we learned. And I don't agree on Marta with that. I think we didn't learn anything. First thing, yeah, I really don't. Yeah, the NGOs maybe learned, they connected, but in general, when you look society, when you look Western Europe, when you look the Balkans, we didn't learn anything. Firstly, when the war in Ukraine started, is it started in February 2022? No, it started in 2014. Because, but the Western Europe at that time was not really in problem. So for Western Europe, war started 2022. And when we look origins of that war, let's look on the Balkan crisis. How war started, where the war started in Balkan crisis, in Balkan wars? It started basically in the region where we are right now, in the Lika, Dalmatia, and Slavonia. But basically started in the small towns where the Serbians have majority. Okay, where the war started in Ukraine? Donbas, stuff like that, because the Russians have majority there. Let's look back. I'm born in 1990, so I don't have personal experience. I have some memories, bad memories from the war, because all war I lived in Zadar, which was affected by the war. But let's look a little bit back, what we could learn, but we didn't learn. Did Serbians who lived there have security from the Croatian new government, independent, after declaration of independence, that there will be safety in that area? Not really. What happened in Ukraine? The Ukrainian government forbid for the Russians to learn Russian language. Is it okay? Absolutely not. Can that justify aggression? Absolutely not. But we need to talk about both sides. When you look how the war started, I remember I will tell you one personal story. I cannot remember because I was still in diapers. So yeah, whole family, father, mother, and my brother and I, we went to village of my father, and there's 2 roads you could go. It was 1991. And my mother said to my father, yeah, let's go to another because there's some rebellion forces on this road. No, my father was pretty stubborn. I have these genetics. No, this is my country, I will go road which I want to take. Of course, we were stopped by the rebellion forces with automatic firearms and stuff like that. Luckily, he bribed with some meat and cheese and rakia, of course, the soldier, and we were let to go to Zadar. So the origins, when we are speaking about origins of the war, they are really similar. And when we look today, what is the capital city for the Croatians in the Herzegovina? Lana, this is a good question. Is it Sarajevo or is it Zagreb?
That's a correct question.
Yeah. but it's not politically correct, yeah. But let's be honest. What is the capital? What is the capital city of the Serbians in Banja Luka? Is it Belgrade or is it Sarajevo? Ranko Krivokapić said this morning. I was listening carefully. They have in constitution in the Montenegro. They don't have nationalities. They're all citizens. They're all citizens. In Croatia, we don't have that. We have 8 members of national minorities in the parliament. So we are not all equal. I said you need to protect the minorities, especially when you have 86% of majority of one nationality. And when I'm talking about why we didn't learn anything from the Balkan War, now it's 28 years after the signature in Paris of Dayton Agreement. Okay? 28 years after the Second World War, it was 1973. It was the first enlargement of European community. Denmark, Ireland, UK. I checked it, I didn't know exactly so. And what we are talking now, 28 years after the war in ex-Yugoslavia. Lana mentioned that. So when you look now, when the people from the Western Europe will talk about peace negotiation and the signing agreement, the Dayton Agreement, they will look on a Dayton Agreement. Dayton Agreement have only one thing which is good. It stopped the war. 28 years later, it's ripping apart the Bosnia and Herzegovina. Ripping apart. And nobody's talking about that. And what Lana mentioned, it was really good. When the war started in February 2022, in the UK news, in the France, in Germany, what Lana mentioned, the first war in European soil after the Second World War. That's the real meaning that we didn't learn. Because Europe forget it what happened. We forgot it what was the cause of the war. And we never discussed the consequence of Dayton Agreement, of the NATO bombing, which you mentioned. What would happen if the Z4 agreement in the 1995 was signed? Yeah. Yeah, it was rejected. I asked, what would happen if it's signed? You know, so all these things telling us that we didn't learn anything, and I think we will not learn anything. What Kimo said, and I think I agree with them, that Ukrainian cannot win the war. It can win with Russian people, and that's the truth. I think that this war will last. It will not be short time. We'll have this topic years and years, and we must be honest about that. So I don't think that Ukrainian government made all right decisions. I absolutely support Ukraine, it's no doubt. You cannot justify aggression on sovereign country. That's it. That must be the line you cannot cross at any argument. But I think that Western Europe doesn't really understand the Balkans and understand the Ukrainian, especially because of these nationalities. We are not talking anymore about a verdict of European Court for the Human Rights for the Bosnia, Sejdić i Finci. So if you come as a German and you have Bosnian citizenship, you cannot become member of the presidency. You're not equal. That's the base. If you're not respecting the human rights, there is a sign of this. What we can talk about after that. So I think that sadly, the lessons from the Balkan Wars are not learned, and we are paying the prices because a lot of Western politicians, I think they didn't act as they need in this Russian aggression against Ukrainian because they could learn in the 90s when the Yugoslavia was falling apart. I will stop there.
Thank you. Okay, do we have some comments? Oh, we have, definitely. Okay, Pavle.
Hi again. Yeah. Hi again. First and foremost, thank you for the wonderful discussions, the beautiful talking points, a lot of food for thought. But I would like to add up on something that Yuri mentioned about the Daytona issue and about other issues of similar type in the region. I don't think it's only about failure to learn lessons on our side. I also think it's about not willing to revisit past instances that are considered to be success by the foreign factors. So basically, Daytona is one side of the coin. In North Macedonia, we have the Ohrid Framework Agreement. Basically, it's a written document that ended up the hostilities between Macedonians and Albanians, and it's a roadmap on how to deal with interethnic issues and to secure representation of different ethnicities within the country. As an idea, it was an excellent document and a very revolutionary document in 2001. Just as the Daytona Agreement was revolutionary and it ended the hostilities back in the day when it was signed. But both of those instances are considered to be successes by the international factor that mediated them. And they don't want to even consider publicly the possibility that time and contemporary political developments impose the need of revisiting those issues. In North Macedonia, the practice established by the Ohrid Framework Agreement, yes, it solved a lot of interethnical issues, but it's also being used by political parties as a tool for partization, raising of nationalism, raising of interethnic tensions, and continuing a never-ending process of separation of the different ethnic communities instead of building a unified society with integrated different ethnic groups. So we need to be very clear and to tell our partners, thank you for your contribution. It was extremely helpful, but we need to reopen this issue. It's not a permanent issue. I'm sure that there will be a day when possibly the Prespa agreement will need to be revisited. Whatever solution comes with Bulgaria, it might help us now to overcome this issue, but in 10, 20 years, we might have to revisit the same issues again. In the region, we need to establish a practice that parallel to the development of democracies of different countries, we need development of the perception that the foreign factor has on those burning issues in the individual countries, but in the region as a whole too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pavle. I think that those agreements, Kumanovo Agreement and Dayton Agreement, they are actually efficient tools to end fightings and war, but they are not in the same time efficient tools for rebuilding societies. Yeah, the floor is yours.
When we talk about certain principles as a socialist, as a feminist, and as a leftist, then we have to approach them very carefully. For example, mentioning demography in general from our position is a very sensitive. You know, this is a rightist agenda. You know, we need more people and all these sort of things. I think, no, I'm just allow me, please. You know, I think that we are missing the point. We have so many people within our societies who are neglected, who are forgotten. In this region, we got around 150,000 Romas who do not exist, who are not in the labor market, who are not educated, who are not integrated. We don't see them. You know? If we talk about the demographics, we have to integrate society. This is, for me, a feminist, socialist, leftist, progressive issues. And internationalism should cover everybody, every individual, every group, every collective. You know, I'm working with the Romas for 30 years. In Bosnia, there are 70,000 Romas. In the census, 11,500 is registered. The others are not able to register. The employment in the Roma community is 1.3%. The literacy is 17%. Primary education is not finished by over 45% obligatory primary education. And the Romas are not visible. In my society, we talk about the collective rights of Serbs, Bosniaks, Croats, blah, 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 and all these sort of things. And we are not focusing on a community that is absolutely discriminated. You know, they are invisible, they are untouchable. Another issue that I want to touch on is not saying that the history is overburdened and make things easier to understand. No, we need to revisit history. We have to restudy, and we have to be honest. We are currently in a town that is called Korčula. Just across Korčula is the island of Badija, that in 1994 welcomed members of the Croatian forces concentration camps in Herzegovina. They were brought in to be fattened up before sent to a third countries. They were not allowed to go back to Bosnia. They were brought in from concentration camps in Ljubuški, in Mostar, in Livno. My father was 11 and a half months in one of those concentration camps. You know, they were brought in, and the people from here, 99% of people from this town don't know about it. You have a president of European country who is elected as a social democrat, who is denying genocide in Bosnia. That is the president of Croatia. He is very closely cooperating with Putin's strongman in Europe's soft belly. That's Milorad Dodik. Milorad Dodik flies to Milanovic in a private arrangements. So what I'm trying to say is that for me, a social, democratic, progressive, feminist activism is showing solidarity, active solidarity with those who are the weakest. You know, we are having a whole day here. Bosnia and Herzegovina is the most unstable country in this region. We're just talking for 15, 20 minutes about it. For me, not only because I'm coming from Bosnia, I decided to come back in Bosnia. It should be a topic of left. It should be what we can do to strengthen the society. You know, so sorry for taking too much space.
Thank you, Marta, Goran, and
thank you very much for both of you. One of the things I would like to point out that under the Stability Pact Gender Task Force, the CEE Network had trainings for the region for different society actors. So there were politicians, there were municipalities, and for 2 years there was special emphasis on Romas. And we were connecting Roma communities from the Western Balkans and working with them to enable them to take active role in their own municipalities. And I think it was a very good and powerful program. The second thing is that there are several programs that are running across nationally as well. And for instance, I was for many decades part of a program called Romaster, to provide from high school up until university opportunities of young Romas who were volunteering or who were asking for internship, for their teachers, for their families, to go through the schooling system. And they were adopted by businesses. So the businesses were paying, they were giving them internships, and they integrated into their community back and forth. They were so-called ambassadors of their communities and role models for the young people in their communities that you can make it. And now it's more than 15, 20 years the program is running. It is brought a lot of very talented young people across the country. and they are visible. But we don't talk about these programs. They are not visible around it because for some odd reasons, good examples are not really newsworthy. Bad examples are always highlighted. So this is what I was trying to say with the role of the media. And yes, the Dayton Agreement was able to stop, as you were saying, the war, but it's not the mechanism for the peace and for the future and for the growth. And this was my reason I was saying that we have to learn for the good and the bad things from the Western Balkans. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. Gorane, it's 4:15, short one, please.
Sure. Two things. First, I agree with you regarding the agreements, but be careful. Reopening agreements in the region can be very dangerous also. And maybe next generation will be able to do that. Existing, I'm not sure. Regarding the demography, I also agree with you, but when I say demography, that's not just having more babies, you know. That's integration and migration. And that's sensitive. No, that's the policy on which the right party wins in Finland and in Sweden. And we can say, for us that's sensitive, but they win. Yeah, okay. We will stay to be sensitive and do nothing.
Thank you. Hey, do you want to...
Hello to everyone. I'm Jelena Pekic. I'm director of Forum Left Initiative think tank organization in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I need just to have a short reply to my colleagues from SDP from Croatia, and I will reply in Bosnian language. Ne mogu da ne odgovorim mom drugu, rekla bih, iz SDP-a Hrvatske na konstataciju da je da se u Banja Luci smatra da je glavni grad Bosne i Hercegovine Beograd, a ne Sarajevo. I moram na to se naprosto osvrnuti, zato što zavisno s kim razgovarate i koga pitate. I upravo ova retorika nas je dovela do tog da postoji percepcija da je Banja Lučanima glavni grad Bosne i Hercegovine Beograd, a ne Sarajevo, jer da pitate obične ljude da odete u Banja Luku, ti ljudi će vam vrlo jasno reći koji je glavni grad, ali zahvaljujući više od 20 godina etnonacionalnoj retorici koja vlada u Bosni i Hercegovini i trenutnoj retorici koja vlada u Republici Srpskoj, političari, Dodik će vam reći da jest, glavni grad je Beograd, ali zaista to među ljudima nije tako. I pogotovo kada živite evo na relaciji Sarajevo-Istočno Sarajevo, kada pitate ljude, jedna je slika među ljudima, a ima puno jako, da znate, u Republici Srpskoj ima jako puno straha, gdje ljudi strahuju da iznesu svoje mišljenje upravo zbog režima koji tamo vlada. Međutim, ono što zaista želim da podijelim s vama i na bazi i panela koje smo jutros imali, da mene jako zabrinjava mi kao socijaldemokrati kako se ponašamo kad smo opozicija, a kako se ponašamo kad dođemo na vlast. I to smo najbolje pokazali mi u zemljama Zapadnog Balkana. To me jako zabrinjava, mene kao neko ko treba da bude ovo novo lice politike, jako me zabrinjava da one vrijednosti koje mi kao socijaldemokrati nosimo, slobode, solidarnosti, razumijevanja, da nekako ih utihnemo. Desničari već i oni pričaju o našim vrijednostima, ali oni nikad ne odustaju od onih etno-nacionalističke retorike. Oni od tog ne odustaju, preuzimaju naše vrijednosti. Sve ćete vi više vidjeti da se i desničari bave socijalnim pitanjima i nezaposlenošću tako dalje. A šta mi radimo? Mi odustajemo od svojih vrijednosti lagano, a preuzimamo njihovu retoriku koja je vrlo opasna. Onog momenta kad socijaldemokrati neću ni jednu zemlju imenovati, dođu na vlast, mi počnemo pričati teme desnog, hajde da kažem, političkog spektra. I to mene strašno zabrinjava. Znači, socijaldemokratija i mi, da li bili na vlasti u poziciji, moramo biti garant mira u zemljama Zapadnog Balkana. Ne smije se desiti kad su socijaldemokrati na vlasti da nas ljudi, građani, oni obični građani, pitaju hoće li biti rata. šta se dešava. Mi, kao socijaldemokrati, to ne smijemo dozvoliti. Eto, tako, imala sam potrebu da zaista na bazi sve ove diskusije se javim, da kažem da se moramo malo, i neko je to čak i govorio ovdje na panelima, da moramo malo pospremiti između sebe i nekako, nekad i mi pokažemo dva lica kada su u pitanju određena dešavanja. Znaš, nekad bi malo ovako, nekad malo onako, a zapravo odustajemo od onih. Samo da se mi držimo svojih temeljnih vrijednosti na kojima počiva socijaldemokratija i mi moramo graditi mir. U Bosni i Hercegovini je toliko bilo u proteklom periodu napetosti, a jako je malo političara, da ne izdvajam sad ih pojedinačno, koji su smirivali tenzije. Mi ne razumijete, ali nije nam cilj evo, posvađat ćemo se, nećemo pričati. Mi moramo otići i razgovarati na svakom sastanku. Moramo smanjivati tenzije, a ne da mi budemo ti koji dižemo tenzije. Ljudi, građani, ne smiju biti zabrinuti da će ovdje se više ikad desiti rat. Hvala.
Thank you.
Molim te, samo rečenicu. Samo jedna rečenica, da ne budem krivo shvaćen. Ja sam rekao da je taj narativ, da je on problem, upravo to je problem, ne da ga ja podržavam u tom kontekstu, i upravo zato što obični ljudi koji su u strahu reći što je stvarno, jer se njeguje taj narativ da je Hrvatima glavni grad Zagreb ili da je problem, tako da smo se razumjeli, samo mislim da je došlo do krive interpretacije.
We will now finish. I must say, when I was listening to you, that I read somewhere that, actually war is the action of cowards who are not capable to face the challenges and problems of peace. And I think we are more than others aware of that. Dasha, the floor is yours. Chief of Korčula School.
Yeah, Chef Parade, we've gone overboard. We said we'll finish at 4, but I think it has been... What time it is? Sorry? No, it's 9. Okay. No, but I think this was a very instrumental discussion, and we will do a write-up. But what I learned here was we had a mix. We had a mix of what happened, the situation. We had a mix of what we have learned and some issues that we've learned, and then we have a very conceptual set of issues. As far as the international community is concerned, I'm very sorry that we are not, as the international community, learning the lessons. And Kimo, you know very well that there were whole departments, both in the UN, the OSCE, lessons learned, they came up to here. I was writing lessons learned back and forth in institutes and whatever. And we never learned the lesson. But one of the lessons that was extremely important that the international community did not learn in negotiations to stop the war was do no harm. Whatever and this will be important for Ukraine. Yes, we want to stop the war, but not at any cost and not with any solution. And that's why we're stuck with Dayton. And one of the reasons that we have that problem is because we went for ethnicity and nationalism as a solution, and not for democratic states. And that's why we have a problem of constitutions, of citizens, and that's why the FINCI and the lawsuits. And frankly, there was a Croatian social democrat at one point. I met with him at high level and so on, and I met with him in Brussels, and he said to me, we talked gender, and then he said, I think we should revisit that question of human rights. And I was totally shocked. Imagine this guy who is a politician and so on telling me that we should revisit human rights. I worked on human rights all my life, started human rights and poverty and so on and so forth, and I was shocked. And then I went back, and I don't think he intended it, but then I started thinking about minorities. You were talking about the Roma. You see, like with women, we tend often to throw the baby out with the bathwater. What we have been doing with the minorities is also isolating them as a specific category we need to take care of, and then we take care of them and we look good because it's democracy and so on. The Popovas, what once said, I remember he said, now that Croatia is a member of the European Union, minorities are really not important. But then when they put them in government, they are in the Democristian government now. Vučić put the Croat as a minister in his government. Everything looks beautiful. Ooh, I'm the good guy. I'm putting a Croat. Croats in Vojvodina are what? 0.5%. But he looks like a good guy, because he looks him. And then the international community jumps up and says, this is...
300,000.
How much?
300,000.
Well, out of what? 7 million, whatever.
6.5.
Yeah, your prime minister, yes, is a, Serbian prime minister is a Croat. I mean, and he looks great. He's good, everybody. And she's a lesbian, she's gay. So we got it all right. We've got a lesbian, we've got a Croat as prime minister, and so on and so forth. It looks wonderful, and the international community goes bananas because it's wonderful. I was, and this, I'm now talking to Sabina, I went when I vote in Croatia, okay? I go, and then I was shocked because I went I'm in Zagreb, my name, and the guy looked at me with a very straight face, and he said, would you like to vote for the Serb list? On one hand, it's correct. On the other hand, what the hell? I mean, let me vote for whom I want to vote. Why automatically you're putting me into a situation that I may say, yes, why not? So this is the conceptual, I think, and the breakup, and this will be a question in Ukraine. The question of Ukraine is already starting. It's this whole issue between the Ukrainian and the Russian population, the mixed Ukrainian and Russian population. And it will be a question of language, and it will be a question of status. We've seen it, Estonia, Latvia, whatever. So I think we as social democrats, and this is answering to, who was it, need to be proactive and not reactive. And at this point, I think we're still reactive when this is the case. And we need to open up these questions. Not that we don't know, we know, but we are not acting proactively. Sorry? Yeah, this is one of the lessons we at our board, we discussed it, because we have lessons from the political elites and the economic elites that came into power after the war. Is Ukraine going to repeat what was before? Very quickly? The oligarchs and everybody else and the money and so on? Yeah, the Second World War, well, the president of Croatia has reminded us all, right, of the Slava Ukraini slogan, which was, a fascist slogan during the Second World War of their own making. Right, so much to talk about, and I'm sure that you will all continue talking about this tonight, although we are going to have a nice reception. I agree with you. I fully agree with you.